Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Life-Changing True Stories. Today I bring you a powerful and deeply loving story asterisk. Alina Carter stared at her phone screen, her hands trembling as she watched the video for the third time. There they were, Ryan and Jenna, tangled together in sheets that looked suspiciously like the ones from the hotel where her bachelorette party had been held just 2 nights ago. Her fiancé and her best friend since college, laughing and kissing without a care in the world. The wedding was supposed to be in 3 weeks. The invitations had been sent, the venue booked, the dress altered to perfection. Alina had spent months planning every detail, from the centerpieces to the playlist for the reception. She had imagined walking down that aisle, believing she was stepping into her future. Now that future lay shattered at her feet, like broken glass. Her mother knocked softly on the bedroom door. "Alina, sweetheart, you need to eat something. You have been in there since yesterday." Alina could not bring herself to respond. The humiliation burned through her like acid. It was not just the betrayal itself, though that was devastating enough. It was the way everyone knew. Jenna had posted hints on social media, cryptic messages about true love finding a way. People were already whispering, already pitching her as the fool who could not keep her man. By evening, Alina made a decision. She could not stay in the city, could not face the sympathetic looks and the barely concealed gossip. She packed her bags and drove to her aunt's cottage 3 hours away, a small place nestled in the countryside where she had spent childhood summers. The cottage smelled of lavender and old books. Alina unpacked slowly, trying to find comfort in the familiar surroundings. For 2 weeks, she existed in a quiet bubble, baking bread, reading novels, and taking long walks through the meadows. Her aunt, a wise woman who asked few questions, simply provided tea and understanding silence. Then one afternoon, scrolling mindlessly through social media for the first time since leaving, Alina saw it. Jenna had posted engagement photos. She wore a ring that caught the light in a way that made Alina's stomach turn. The caption read, "When you know you have found the one, why wait?" The comments were full of congratulations, heart emojis, not a single person mentioning that this one had belonged to someone else just weeks ago. Something inside Alina snapped. Not into pieces this time, but into sharp, focused anger. She opened her own social media account, dormant since the scandal. Her fingers moved before her brain could catch up. She searched for stock photos, typing an elegant wedding and sophisticated couple. She scrolled through dozens of images until one made her pause. The man in the photograph stood against a backdrop of city lights, wearing a perfectly tailored suit. His face was partially shadowed, giving him an air of mystery. He had strong features, dark hair, and an intensity in his eyes that seemed to look right through the camera. The photo had an artistic quality, clearly professional, but it felt real enough. Alina downloaded the image and opened her photo editing app. She added a soft filter, cropped it to focus on the man, and then posted it to her account with a simple caption, "Married to my best friend." No tags, no location, just those 4 words in the photograph. She pressed share and immediately felt a rush of satisfaction mixed with anxiety. It was reckless and foolish, but it felt like reclaiming something. Let Jenna see that Alina had moved on too, that she was not sitting alone crying over what she had lost. The response was immediate. Within minutes, her phone began buzzing with notifications. Old friends commented with surprise and congratulations. Former coworkers asked when the wedding had happened. Even distant relatives chimed in with blessings. Alina watched the comments roll in, feeling both vindicated and increasingly uneasy about the lie she had just told. 3 days passed. The post had been shared, screenshotted, and discussed across multiple platforms. Alina tried to ignore the growing attention, but it was everywhere. A local news blog even picked it up with a headline about secret celebrity weddings. Though Alina was far from a celebrity, then came the message that changed everything. It arrived in her inbox. At 7 in the morning, the sender's name was Adrian Stone, and the message was brief and direct. "You used my photograph. We need to talk. Call me." Alina's heart stopped. She clicked on his profile, and her blood ran cold. The verified badge next to his name confirmed what she feared. This was not just some random man from a stock photo site. Adrian Stone was real, very real, and apparently very wealthy. His profile showed him at business conferences, charity galas, and on the covers of financial magazines. He was the CEO of Stone Enterprises, a global investment firm worth billions. Her hands shook as she read through his recent posts. He was private, rarely sharing personal content, but his professional presence was undeniable. And she had just told the entire internet that she was married to him. Before she could decide what to do, her phone rang. The number was unlisted, but something told her exactly who it was. She answered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hello, Miss Carter." The voice was deep, controlled, and entirely to calm. "My legal team informed me this morning that my image is being used without permission to fabricate a marriage. I assume you have an explanation." Elena's mouth went dry. "Mr. Stone, I am so sorry. It was a mistake, a stupid impulse. I never thought anyone would actually recognize you. I will take it down immediately." "Too late for that." There was a pause, and she could hear papers rustling in the background. "The story has already been picked up by several media outlets. My board of directors has questions. My family has questions. And frankly, so do I." Elena closed her eyes, wishing the ground would swallow her whole. "I did not mean for any of this to happen. I was hurt and angry, and I just wanted to prove something to someone who did not deserve my energy. Please, tell me how I can fix this." Another pause, longer this time. When Adrian spoke again, his tone had shifted slightly, less accusatory and more thoughtful. "As it happens, Miss Carter, your lie might actually solve a problem for me. Are you free to meet tomorrow? We should discuss this in person." Elena frowned, confused. "Discuss what exactly?" "A proposal. I need a wife, at least on paper, for the next 6 months. My late father's will stipulates that I must be married to access my full inheritance and maintain control of the company. I have been fighting this requirement for 2 years, but the deadline is approaching. You have already convinced the world we are married? Perhaps we can make this arrangement work for both of us." Elena's mind reeled. "You want me to pretend to be your wife? Actually pretend in real life? I want us to turn your fiction into a mutually beneficial contract. You help me satisfy the terms of the will, and I will compensate you generously. Plus, I imagine it will make quite the statement to whoever drove you to this desperate measure in the first place. Despite everything, despite the absolute insanity of what he was suggesting, Elena felt a flicker of something she had not felt in weeks. Not hope exactly, but possibility. "Where do you want to meet?" she asked. She could hear the smile in his voice when he replied, "I will send a car tomorrow at noon. Pack a bag, Miss Carter. If you agree to my terms, you will be moving into my penthouse by evening. We have a lot of work to do to make this believable." The call ended, leaving Elena staring at her phone in disbelief. She had posted a fake wedding photo to spite her ex and her former best friend. Now she was being offered the chance to make it real, at least temporarily. With a billionaire she had never met, she looked at the photograph still pinned to the top of her profile. At Adrian Stone's shadowed face and intense eyes, what had she gotten herself into? And more importantly, what was she about to agree to? Elena walked to the window, watching the sun rise over the meadow. In 3 weeks, she should have been getting married. Instead, she was about to enter into the strangest agreement of her life with a complete stranger. But as she thought about Jenna's smug smile and Ryan's betrayal, she realized that maybe, just maybe, this was exactly the kind of chaos she needed. She texted back a single word. Okay, by noon the next day, black car would arrive. By evening, her entire life would change. And somewhere in the city, Adrian Stone was already preparing contracts that would bind them together in the most unexpected way possible. The photograph that started as a lie was about to become the strangest truth Elena had ever lived. The car that arrived at noon was not just expensive, it was the kind of vehicle that made neighbors peek through curtains. Sleek, black, and polished to a mirror shine, it looked like it belonged in a movie. The driver, a professional man in his 50s named Thomas, greeted Elena with respectful courtesy and took her single suitcase without comment. During the 2-hour drive back to the city, Elena tried to prepare herself mentally for what was coming. She had agreed to this arrangement in a moment of defiant recklessness, but now, watching the countryside give way to towering skyscrapers, reality was setting in hard. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of one of the city's most exclusive buildings. When the private elevator doors opened directly into the apartment, Alina stepped into a world that felt more like an art gallery than a home. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city. Everything was clean lines, expensive materials, and carefully curated emptiness. Adrian Stone stood near the windows, speaking quietly on his phone. He was taller than she had expected, probably 6'2", with the kind of presence that commanded attention without demanding it. When he ended his call and turned to face her, Alina was struck by how different he looked in person. The photographs had not captured the intelligence in his eyes, or the way he seemed to assess everything in a single glance. Miss Carter said, crossing the room with measured steps. "Welcome. I trust the drive was comfortable." Alina nodded, suddenly aware of how out of place she looked in her casual jeans and sweater. "Very comfortable. Thank you." He gestured toward a seating area where a woman in a crisp business suit was, waiting with a tablet and several folders. "This is Patricia Winters, my attorney. She has prepared the contracts for our arrangement." The next hour was a blur of legal terminology and stipulations. The agreement was straightforward in its complexity. Alina would pose as Adrian's wife for 6 months, attend all necessary events, maintain the appearance of a genuine marriage in public, and live in the penthouse for the duration. In return, she would receive $200,000 upon successful completion of the contract, plus a monthly allowance for expenses. There were clauses about confidentiality, behavior expectations, and grounds for termination. Patricia explained each section with professional detachment while Adrian watched Alina carefully, as if trying to gauge whether she would bolt. One section caught Alina's attention. "It says here that we need to maintain separate bedrooms, and that there will be no physical relationship beyond what is necessary for public appearances." She looked up at Adrian. "What exactly counts as necessary?" "Hand holding brief kisses for photographs, standing close at events. Nothing that would make either of us uncomfortable." His tone was matter of fact. "This is a business arrangement, Miss Carter, not a romance." Alina signed the papers, though her hand trembled slightly as she did. When it was done, Patricia gathered the documents and left, promising to file everything with absolute discretion. Adrian poured 2 glasses of wine and handed one to Alina. "2 unexpected partnerships," he said, raising his glass. She clinked hers against his. "To surviving the next 6 months?" He almost smiled. "Your room is down the hall, second door on the left. We have our first public appearance tomorrow night at a gallery opening. My stylist will arrive in the morning to help you prepare." Alina sipped her wine, the reality of her situation settling over her like a heavy blanket. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did your father put that clause in his will?" "The marriage requirement seems archaic." Adrian's expression darkened slightly. "My father believed that a man without a family had no stake in the future. He thought I was too focused on work, too isolated. He wanted to force me to build a personal life, walk to the windows, looking out at the city. I died 2 years ago, and I have been fighting the board ever since, trying to prove I can run the company without meeting his conditions. But they are threatening to vote me out if I do not comply. That is a lot of pressure." He turned back to her. "What about you? What drove you to post that photograph?" Alina had known this question would come, but she still was not sure how much to share. "My fiancé cheated on me with my best friend. They are engaged now. I saw their announcement, and I just snapped. I wanted them to think I had moved on, that I was fine." Adrian studied her for a long moment. "And are you fine?" She laughed bitterly. "Not even close. But I am working on it." Over the next few weeks, Alina learned to navigate the strange world she had entered. The stylist, an energetic woman named Claire, transformed her wardrobe into something suitable for a billionaire's wife. Alina attended etiquette coaching, learned which fork to use at formal dinners, and memorized details about Adrian's life and business. They rehearsed their story over and over. They had met at a charity auction and kept their relationship private to avoid media scrutiny, and had married in a small, intimate ceremony. Adrian was surprisingly patient during these practice sessions, correcting her gently when she mixed up details. Their first public appearance went smoother than Alina had expected. At the gallery opening, Adrian placed his hand on the small of her back, a touch that was both possessive and protective. She smiled at the right moments, made polite conversation with strangers, and tried not to think about how foreign this all felt. But it was the quiet moments back at the penthouse that surprised her most. Adrian worked late most nights, but sometimes he would emerge from his office around 10 and find Alina reading on the couch. He started joining her, bringing 2 cups of tea without asking if she wanted any. They talked about books mostly. Adrian had an impressive library, and he seemed genuinely interested in her opinions. He recommended authors she had never heard of. She introduced him to poetry he had dismissed as frivolous. These conversations were not part of their contract, but they became a routine neither of them acknowledged out loud. 3 weeks into their arrangement, Jenna appeared. Alina was having lunch at a cafe near the penthouse when she looked up and saw her former best friend standing at her table. Jenna looked different, harder somehow, with perfectly applied makeup that could not quite hide the tightness around her eyes. "So it is true," Jenna said without preamble. "You actually married a billionaire. I have to admit, Alina, I am impressed. I did not think you had it in you." Alina set down her fork carefully. "What do you want, Jenna?" Jenna slid into the opposite seat uninvited. "I want to know how you did it. How did you go from pathetic and abandoned to living in a penthouse? Because from where I stand, this whole thing smells fake." Alina felt her pulse quicken but kept her voice steady. "You mean like your engagement?" "To Ryan? How long were you two together before I found out?"
6 months.
"A year? That is different." Jenna leaned forward. "What Ryan and I have is real. But you and this Adrian Stone character. Please. He has never been photographed with anyone. He is basically a ghost who only shows up for business. And suddenly he is married to you. Something does not add up. Believe what you want?" Alina stood, gathering her purse. "But stay out of my life, Jenna. You made your choice. Live with it." As she walked away, Alina could feel Jenna's eyes burning into her back. The encounter left her shaken, and when she returned to the penthouse, Adrian immediately noticed. "What happened?" he asked, looking up from his laptop. Alina told him about Jenna, about the suspicions and the thinly veiled threats. Adrian listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious. "She is going to try to expose us," Alina said quietly. "I can feel it. She always had a talent for digging up dirt." Adrian closed his laptop. "Then we need to be more convincing. We have a charity gala next week, the biggest social event of the season. If we can make it through that without anyone doubting us, we will be safe." "How do we do that?" He hesitated, then stood and crossed to where she sat. "We need to look like a couple who is actually in love. That means more than just standing next to each other at events." Over the next week, they practiced being affectionate. Adrian would take her hand while they walked through the penthouse. Alina would lean against him while they watched the news. They learned the rhythm of each other's movements, a way to make casual touches seem natural. But something unexpected was happening. The touches that started as rehearsal began to linger. Alina found herself noticing things about Adrian that had nothing to do with their arrangement. The way he absently ran his hand through his hair when he was thinking. The rare, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. The careful way he listened when she talked, as if her words actually mattered. And Adrian seemed different too. He started coming home earlier. He asked about her day and seemed to genuinely care about the answer. Once she found him reading one of the poetry books she had recommended, sticky notes marking pages he wanted to discuss with her. The night before the gala, Alina could not sleep. She wandered into the living room and found Adrian standing at the windows, looking out at the city lights. "Could not sleep either?" she asked softly. He turned, and in the dim light his expression was unguarded. "Alina, I need to tell you something." Her heart began to race. "What is it? This arrangement, this whole situation, it is not what I expected." He stepped closer. "You are not what I expected." Before she could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and sighed. "I need to take this. It is Tokyo. We will talk tomorrow after the gala." Alina nodded and returned to her room, but sleep was impossible now. Something was shifting between them, something that had nothing to do with contracts or public appearances. And tomorrow night at the gala, where Jenna would undoubtedly be watching, they would have to decide just how real they wanted this fake marriage to become. The grand ballroom of the Celestial Hotel was a spectacle of wealth and elegance. Crystal, Chandeliers cast prismatic light across the marble floors, and waiters glided between guests carrying trays of champagne. The charity gala was the social event of the season, attended by politicians, celebrities, and business moguls. Alina stood at the entrance in a midnight blue gown that Claire had chosen, feeling like an imposter despite the months of preparation. Adrian appeared beside her, devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo. He offered his arm without a word, but when she took it, she felt him squeeze her hand gently, silent reassurance that they were in this together. "Ready?" he asked quietly. "As I will ever be." They entered the ballroom, and Alina immediately felt the weight of dozens of eyes turning toward them. Whispers rippled through the crowd. The elusive Adrian Stone and his mysterious wife were here, together, and everyone wanted a closer look. For the first hour, everything went according to plan. They mingled with guests, Adrian introducing Alina to business associates and old family friends. She smiled, made appropriate small talk, and played her role perfectly. Adrian kept his hand on her waist or held her hand, and to anyone watching, they looked like a couple completely at ease with each other. Then Alina saw her across the room. Jenna, wearing a red dress that demanded attention, stood with Ryan near the bar. But Jenna was not looking at Ryan. Her eyes were fixed on Alina with an intensity that made Elena's stomach drop. "She is here," Alina whispered to Adrian. He followed her gaze and his jaw tightened. "Stay close to me." But before they could move away, Jenna was already approaching, cutting through the crowd with purpose. Ryan trailed behind her, looking uncomfortable in his ill-fitting tuxedo. "Alina." "What a surprise," Jenna said, her voice carrying just enough to attract nearby attention. "And this must be the famous husband. Adrian Stone, is it?" "I have been dying to meet the man who swept my oldest friend off her feet so quickly." Adrian extended his hand politely. "Miss Hayes, I have heard quite a bit about you." Jenna's smile was razor-sharp. "All good things, I hope." She turned to Alina. "I was just telling Ryan how remarkable your recovery has been. From devastated bride to billionaire's wife in mere weeks. It is quite the transformation." Alina felt Adrian's hand tighten slightly on her waist, a silent message of support. "People heal at different speeds, Jenna. Some of us are fortunate enough to find something real when we least expect it." "Real?" Jenna's laugh was musical and cruel. "That is an interesting word choice." She pulled out her phone with theatrical flair. "Because I have been doing some digging, as old friends do, I found something fascinating." The nearby guests were definitely listening now, their conversations dying down as the tension became palpable. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. Jenna held up her phone, showing a screenshot. This is the original image Elena posted when she announced her marriage. Notice anything interesting about it? Adrian's expression remained perfectly calm. "Should we?" "Well, I had a friend in digital forensics take a look." Jenna's voice grew louder, more confident. "This image was purchased from a stock photography site. The original photographer confirmed that this photo was taken 4 months before Alina claimed to have married you." She looked around at the gathering crowd. "Care to explain how you married someone before you ever met them?" The ballroom had gone nearly silent. Alina felt the blood drain from her face. This was it. The moment everything came crashing down. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Then Adrian did something she never expected. He laughed, not a forced, nervous laugh, but a genuine sound of amusement that echoed through the quiet room. "Miss Hayes, you have done your homework. I appreciate thoroughness in business." He turned to address the crowd that had formed around them. "What she says is technically true. That photograph was taken before Alina and I met." Jenna's triumphant expression faltered slightly. "So you admit this is a fraud?" "Not at all." Adrian pulled Alina closer, his arm around her waist. "The image Alina posted was indeed from a stock photography site. But what Miss Hayes failed to discover in her investigation is that I was the model for that photo shoot. 4 years ago, the photographer was a college friend who needed someone for his portfolio. I agreed to help him out, never imagining those photos would be sold to stock sites." Alina stared at him in shock. He was lying, spinning an elaborate story on the spot, but he delivered it with such confidence that even she almost believed him. So when Alina posted that image, Adrian continued, "I saw it immediately. I was amused and intrigued. A woman I had never met had accidentally announced she was married to me. I decided to find her, to see what kind of person would do something so impulsive. And when I met her, I understood. He looked down at Alina, and the expression in his eyes made her breath catch. She was hurt, lashing out at people who had betrayed her. She was not trying to trick anyone or gain anything. She was just trying to survive. And somehow, against all odds, we connected. We fell in love. In 3 weeks after that post, we actually did get married. Quietly, privately, because neither of us wanted a circus. The crowd murmured, some people nodding sympathetically. The story had just enough truth woven through it to be believable. Jenna's face had gone pale. That is convenient. It's very convenient. Adrian's expression hardened. What is convenient is you attempting to humiliate someone at a charity event because you cannot handle your own guilt? Alina never did anything to you except trust you. And instead of apologizing for your betrayal, you are trying to destroy the happiness she has found. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone, scrolling quickly before turning the screen toward Jenna. This is our actual marriage certificate. Filed with the county clerk 6 months ago. It is a matter of public record, though we kept it private. Feel free to verify it. Elena's mind reeled. 6 months ago, she had not even met Adrian. The certificate could not be real. But she knew Adrian had the resources to create convincing documents. And more importantly, he had the confidence to sell the lie. Jenna stared at the phone screen, her confidence crumbling. Ryan tugged at her arm. Jenna, let us just go. But Jenna was not done. Even if that is real, she hissed, this whole thing is still suspicious. You barely know each other. Then let me make something very clear. Adrian's voice dropped, becoming cold and sharp. I chose Alina. I married her because she is intelligent, kind, and genuine in a world full of people like you who fake everything. This conversation is over. I suggest you focus on your own relationship and stay out of ours. Security appeared at Adrian's subtle gesture, politely but firmly encouraging Jenna and Ryan to leave. As they were escorted away, Jenna shot Alina one last venomous look. But the damage had been contained. The crowd slowly dispersed, conversations resuming as the drama ended. Several people approached Alina and Adrian with words of support, expressing disgust at Jenna's behavior. Through it all, Adrian kept Alina close, playing the protective husband perfectly. When they finally had a moment alone on a quiet balcony overlooking the city, Alina turned to him. That marriage certificate you showed her does not exist, Adrian confirmed quietly. But she will not check. People rarely verify things when they are presented with enough confidence. And even if she tries, my attorneys can make the paperwork appear by morning. You lied for me. Elena's voice was barely above a whisper. You could have let me fall. You could have walked away and protected yourself. Adrian turned to face her fully, his expression more open than she had ever seen it. Could have. But somewhere. In the last few months, this stopped being about a contract or an arrangement. He reached up, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. You changed something in me, Elena. You made this empty apartment feel like a home. You made me remember what it is like to talk to someone. Really talk. Not just exchange information, but share thoughts and feelings. Elena's heart was pounding. Adrian, I have to tell you something. He smiled slightly. That you have feelings for me? I know. I have seen the way you look at me when you think I am not paying attention, the way you laugh at my terrible jokes, the way you always make 2 cups of tea even though you know I will be working late. Then why did not you say anything? 'Cause I was afraid. He took her hands in his. I have spent years building walls, convincing myself that I did not need anyone, that relationships were complications I could not afford. But then you walked into my life with your impulsive photograph, and your stubborn pride, and your genuine heart. And suddenly all those walls seemed pointless. Elena felt tears forming. This was supposed to be fake. A business arrangement. It was. But the best things in life are the ones we do not plan for. Adrian cupped her face gently. I love you, Elena Carter. I love your strength and your vulnerability. I love the way you talk about books, and the way you hum while you bake. I love that you made me remember how to be human instead of just a CEO. I love you too, Elena whispered. I have loved you for weeks now, maybe longer. I was just too scared to admit it. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. But Alina did not pull away. She closed the distance between them, and when their lips met, it was nothing like the practiced kisses they had shared for cameras. This was real, deep, full of months of unspoken feelings and denied attraction. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. So where does this leave us? The contract ends in 3 months. Alina smiled. I think we should probably renegotiate the terms. What did you have in mind? Well, the clause about separate bedrooms seems outdated now, and I think the duration needs to be extended. How long were you thinking? Alina pretended to consider. How about forever? Adrian laughed, a sound of pure joy that she had never heard from him before. Forever sounds perfect. But there is one thing we need to do first. What is that? Get married. Actually married this time, not just on paper or in stories we tell. I want the real thing with you, Alina. The vows, the commitment, the partnership. All of it. Tears were streaming down Elena's face now. But they were happy tears. Yes, 1,000 times yes. They returned to the gala long enough to make their excuses and say goodnight to the important guests. As they left, Alina caught sight of Adrian's lawyer, Patricia, across the room. The older woman caught her eye and gave a small, knowing smile and a subtle nod of approval. In the car on the way home, Elena's phone buzzed with a message. It was from an unknown number, but when she opened it, she recognized the writing style immediately. Jenna, you win, Alina. Enjoy your billionaire. But do not think for a second that what you have is real. People like him do not marry people like us. It is all just another transaction. Alina showed the message to Adrian. He read it and shook his head. She still does not understand. Understand what? That love is not about being the same. It is about choosing each other every day. He took Elena's hand. You were not trying to trap a billionaire or social climb. You were just trying to survive heartbreak. And I was not looking for a trophy wife or a business asset. I was looking for something I did not even know I needed. Someone who saw past the money and the power to the person underneath. Alina deleted the message without responding. Jenna no longer deserved space in her thoughts. 6 weeks later, they stood in a small chapel surrounded by people who actually mattered. Elena's aunt, misty-eyed and proud. Adrian's mother, who had flown in from Paris and immediately embraced Alina's family. Patricia, who had become an unexpected friend. Thomas, the driver, who had witnessed their entire journey. And a handful of close friends who knew the real story and loved them anyway. This time, Alina wore a simple ivory dress and carried wildflowers. Adrian wore a navy suit and could not stop smiling. There were no photographers, no gossip columns, no performances. Just two people making promises they fully intended to keep. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the kiss they shared was witnessed only by people who cared about their happiness. And when they walked back down the aisle together, Alina realized that the fake marriage she had invented out of pain had somehow led her to the realest love she had ever known. 3 months after that, Alina stood in the penthouse that now truly felt like home, looking out at the city lights. Adrian came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. Any regrets? He asked softly. About posting that photograph? About agreeing to your crazy contract? About falling in love with you? Any of it. Alina turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had become her everything. Not a single one. Except maybe that I did not post that photograph sooner. Adrian laughed and kissed her forehead. For what it is worth, I am glad your ex was an idiot. If he had been smart enough to appreciate you, I never would have found you. Somewhere across the city. Jenna was probably still trying to convince people that Elena's marriage was a fraud. Ryan was probably regretting the choices that had cost him someone special. But Alina no longer cared about any of that. She had learned that the best revenge was not proving people wrong or making them jealous. It was building a life so full of genuine love and happiness that you forgot to care. It's what they thought at all. And as she stood in Adrian's arms, watching the city sparkle below them, Alina knew that sometimes the most beautiful stories are the ones that start with mistakes, grow through challenges, and end with two people choosing each other not because they have to, but because they cannot imagine doing anything else. The fake marriage had become real. The The business arrangement had become love. And the woman who had once posted a photograph in desperate defiance had found something far better than revenge. She had found home. Years later, when people asked how they met, Lena and Adrian would smile at each other with shared secret amusement. They would say they had an unconventional beginning. That sometimes love finds you when you are not looking for it. That the best relationships are built on honesty, trust, and the willingness to take risks. And they would mean every word. Because the truth behind their story was simple. Sometimes you have to fake it before you can make it real. Sometimes you have to pretend to be brave before you actually become brave. And sometimes, just sometimes, the lies we tell to protect ourselves lead us exactly where we need to be. Alina never regretted posting that photograph. It had brought her Adrian, and Adrian had brought her back to herself. Together, they built a life that was messy and complicated and absolutely real. They had arguments and laughter, challenges and triumphs, and through it all, they had each other, and in the end, that was the only truth that mattered. The woman who had been betrayed learned to trust again. The man who had built walls learned to let someone in. And together, they proved that sometimes the most unexpected beginnings lead to the most beautiful endings. Their story was not perfect, but it was theirs, and that made it absolutely perfect after all.